I'm taking surf lessons, she said, barefoot in the kitchen, sun-kissed and giddy like a teenager chasing summer. She paused, waiting for my reaction. I waited too. She tapped the counter. Every Saturday. Should be fun. I glanced up from my coffee. With who? She said it quickly, like ripping off a Band-Aid. Derek. The name landed hard. Her ex. The one who still popped up in stories sometimes. Funny stories. Harmless memories. Past tense echoes, or so I thought. She saw the way my eyes narrowed and immediately added, "Don't overthink it." Her tone wasn't dismissive. It was the opposite. Coaxing, careful, like she'd practiced it in her head a few dozen times. I've been married to Haley for 8 years. I know when something's rehearsed. You're going surfing with your ex every weekend? I asked slowly, setting my mug down. She shrugged like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. He knows the best instructor. Plus, he already surfs. It just makes sense. I've always wanted to try. You hate cold water. She smiled again, tighter this time. Wetsuits help. She was already wearing the new one. Tight neoprene hugging every curve, the zipper running like a trail of temptation down her spine. I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice how good she looked in it. And maybe that was the point. She looked alive in a way she hadn't for a while. Leaner, toned, suddenly eager for dawn drives and physical challenge. All things I hadn't seen in her since before me, if I'm honest. You don't even like Derek, I said, half laughing. She looked down at her smoothie, suddenly fascinated by the spiraling blend of kale and frozen mango. We've moved past the awkward part. We're friends now. That was another line she'd probably rehearsed. Friends now. Right. I wanted to say more. Wanted to drag the truth into the open like a body from deep water. But I stayed silent, swallowing down whatever suspicion was rising up in me. Instead, I smiled. All right. Have fun. Her shoulders dropped. She leaned across the counter and kissed me, a kiss that tasted like mango and apology. Her lips lingered for just half a second too long, like she was overcompensating. I kissed her back, but I wasn't kissing my wife. I was kissing the version of her that wanted me to believe. And I always notice. The next Saturday, I watched her pack the car, towel, board, sunblock, GoPro, all the gear of someone who suddenly lived for the ocean. Her laugh echoed from the driveway as she took a selfie by the car. A notification popped on her phone. I didn't check it. I didn't need to. The tone of her voice when she said his name told me everything. The first seed of doubt had been planted weeks ago. It had grown into a quiet storm inside my chest. When she left, I sat on the porch. No music. No podcast. Just coffee and the ocean breeze that no longer smelled like freedom. It smelled like something slipping away. She returned around noon, wet hair dripping onto her tank top, her cheeks red from sun and exertion. She was glowing, and not in the I had a nice time way. It was a glow I remembered from our early days, post-sex, post-escape, post-anything that made her feel wanted. She kissed me hello, arms wrapping around my neck like everything was fine. Her skin was warm. Her breath smelled like coconut chapstick and sea salt. She pressed her body against mine like it still belonged to me. I kissed her harder than I meant to. She pulled back, smiling like she'd passed a test. Missed me. Always, I said, and meant it. Even when I wasn't sure who she was anymore. That night, I made love to her. Maybe out of fear. Maybe because she seemed further away than usual, and I wanted to anchor her back to me with my hands and mouth and breath. She responded. Eager. Responsive. But distracted. There was a moment, when I had her pinned gently beneath me, her fingers knotted in the sheets, that her eyes slipped shut and she whispered a name. Not mine. It was soft, nearly inaudible, but unmistakable. Derek. My rhythm didn't falter. I kept going. I kissed her deeper. I made her moan louder, like I could drown it out. She didn't even notice. When she came, it was explosive, her body arching under me, her nails scraping my back like she was trying to hold on. But something about it felt off, like she was chasing something in her head that I couldn't see. After, she curled up beside me, breathless, satisfied. She fell asleep quickly. I stared at the ceiling, counting breaths, counting cracks, counting the ways I already knew. Sunday morning, she offered me coffee in bed, called me handsome, called me babe, in that sing-song voice she hadn't used since we were newlyweds. I smiled, played along, kissed her knuckles, but in the quiet space between her footsteps and the sound of the grinder downstairs, I opened her phone. Just once, just long enough to see the thread. The name, Derek. The texts. Can't wait for next weekend. Still thinking about how close we were on that last wave. You looked incredible in that suit. I wanted to peel it off right there on the beach. I locked the phone, set it back exactly where I found it, and I smiled, because the rope had just been handed to her, and she didn't even know she was already hanging. I noticed it the second Friday in a row. At first, it was just subtle things, nothing glaring, nothing incriminating. That's how it always starts. Love blinds you to the obvious, but once doubt gets in the room, it sharpens your vision like sand in your eyes. She started showering around 4:30 p.m. instead of after dinner like she used to. And these weren't quick, rinse the day off showers. These were full-blown, candlelit, playlist on repeat, exfoliate every crevice showers. Like she was preparing for a goddamn date. She came out wearing satin, not the thick, comfy robe she always swaddled herself in, but a short, pale pink wrap that barely touched mid-thigh. Her skin still dewy, hair wrapped in a towel. She smelled like vanilla and confidence. I sat at the kitchen table, pretending to scroll through sports scores, but I was only watching her. Every movement felt curated, like she was performing in front of a mirror I wasn't supposed to be. Going somewhere? I asked, keeping my voice casual. She smiled without teeth, just the corners of her lips curling like a secret. Just out. Sarah and I are getting drinks. That's 2 weeks in a row. Girls' night back in rotation? She kissed my cheek, leaving a faint outline of gloss. Don't overthink it, she said again. That damn phrase. The more she said it, the more I realized she was the one overthinking, trying to cover tracks before I'd even asked where they led. She left with a bounce in her step, her heels clicking on the hardwood like punctuation marks. I waited until her taillights disappeared down the street before standing. In the dim kitchen, the wine glass she'd left beside the sink still had her lip print on it. A different shade than the one she wore during breakfast. I cleaned it slowly, and then I waited. By the third Friday, her patterns were undeniable. She'd wax her legs Thursday night, then spend all of Friday in what I'd call casual seduction mode. Tight jeans, soft tank tops, bra barely thick enough to count. She walked through the house like a breeze that wanted to be chased. I didn't chase. I watched. I became still, silent. The kind of man who notices everything because his heart no longer clouds his mind. Around 5 o'clock, I caught the scent again. Not just perfume. His scent. That foreign cologne that didn't match anything on my shelf. Something leathery and spicy, like sex bottled and labeled reckless. I followed it upstairs. Her gym bag was slumped beside the bed. I opened it. Inside, towel, bikini, travel-size perfume. A hotel room key with the number blurred out by thumb grease and time. No receipt. No note. Just the unmistakable aura of someone who wasn't hiding well, because she didn't think I was looking. That was her first mistake. I didn't confront her. Instead, I made myself invisible. Let her build her world without interference. When she returned late that night, cheeks flushed and lips swollen like she'd been kissed more than once, I greeted her with quiet warmth. Good time? I asked, flipping a page in the novel I wasn't really reading. She nodded, sliding off her heels like Cinderella's darker twin. Yeah, Sarah was hilarious tonight. I closed the book. We should have Sarah over sometime. It's been a while. She blinked, hesitated. Sure, I'll ask her. She wouldn't. There was no Sarah. Not anymore. That night, she curled into me, limbs wrapping mine, skin still scented like another man's touch. I held her. I didn't kiss her. I didn't flinch. Let the guilt ferment. By the fourth Friday, it wasn't denial anymore. It was routine. She spent most of the day humming to herself, texting with a guarded screen, laughing at things that didn't exist in our shared world. Her phone buzzed often, always face down, always zipped into her purse like it was something sacred. That evening, I poured myself a whiskey, sat on the porch, and watched her drive off again. Her silhouette in the driver's seat looked lighter, like a woman set free. Like she'd left her wedding ring in a drawer somewhere, just for the night. I took a sip and let the burn remind me I was still awake in this nightmare. It wasn't even about Derek anymore. It was about the familiarity of betrayal. The rhythm. The cowardice. It was déjà vu in real time. Because the truth about cheating is that it's never spontaneous. It's premeditated. It's ritual. Grooming. Fantasizing. Justifying. They call it making a mistake, but there's too much preparation in it to be accidental. Haley was living in those rituals now. The hair appointments, the secret texts, the gym sessions she never used to care about. I watched it all unfold with surgical detachment, and I drank my coffee like a monk preparing for war. Saturday morning, she was home early. Too early. She padded into the kitchen wearing one of my old shirts. No bra, her nipples two dark suggestions beneath cotton. She leaned against the fridge and gave me that smile again, the soft one with too much sweetness. I didn't look up from my laptop. No surfing. She stretched, the shirt riding up her thighs. Waves were weak. Shame. She moved behind me, her arms draping over my shoulders. She pressed her lips to my neck. "You've been so good lately," she whispered. It wasn't a compliment. It was a warning. A way to remind me that her peace came with strings, that if I pulled too hard, I might strangle us both. I reached up, took her hand, and kissed her knuckles. "I aim to please," I said. But what I meant was, I aim. That afternoon, I checked the perfume bottle in the bathroom. It had shifted shelves. The one she reserved for sex wasn't where it belonged. The towel in the hamper smelled like chlorine and ocean. But we don't have a pool, and the beach was too cold for swimming. Right under the skin. That's how truth reveals itself. Not with an explosion. With a slow, quiet decay, too perfect on the outside, until you bite in and find the black underneath. I didn't plan to follow her. Not at first. That's how I know I wasn't out for revenge. I wasn't even angry yet. Just hollow. A man suspended in silence, trying to see if he still mattered in his own life. But by the third Saturday, curiosity became something sharper. She left just before 7 a.m. The same patterned towel over her shoulder, bikini peeking beneath a thin cover-up, board strapped to the roof. She kissed me on the forehead like a mother soothing a child. Not a wife kissing her husband. "I'll be back around noon," she said. "Don't wait up. Be safe." I replied, my voice so calm it made her glance back twice. She didn't know I'd already filled the tank last night. Didn't know I'd programmed her destination into a separate phone, one I kept off and out of sight. 10 minutes after she left, I followed. The drive was easy, familiar. She took the coastal route, the scenic one, the long one. Maybe she thought it was romantic. Maybe it gave her time to become someone else by the time she arrived. I parked a few streets away from the public access trail that led to Sand Bay, a popular surf spot in the off-season. Quiet, raw, perfect for someone looking to stay beneath radar. I waited in the shadows of a shaded bluff, sunglasses on, camera app open, heart ticking like a landmine waiting for proof. And then I saw them. She wasn't alone. They met just beyond the dunes. He carried his board under one arm, a towel slung lazily over his shoulder, and the same stupid half-smile he wore in the few Facebook photos still tagged from their past. Derek. Fit. Barefoot. Shirtless. Haley lit up when she saw him. That smile, the real one, the one she didn't give me anymore. She walked straight into his arms. Not a quick friend hug. Not a polite pat. A deep, full-bodied press of skin on skin, cheek to neck. His hands settled low on her back, his fingers curling slightly. Familiar. Possessive. She didn't resist. She melted into it. My chest went tight. Not like pain. Like slow, measured suffocation. The kind that builds up over weeks of being lied to with a soft voice and warm touches. I took the photo. Just one. Just enough. Then I watched. They laid their towels side by side, too close for friends. Her head tilted back in laughter. His gaze dipped low and lingered. She pulled her hair into a ponytail, and he reached up to fix a stray strand. Their legs brushed. Their hands touched casually, repeatedly, in that unmistakable rhythm of two people whose bodies knew each other. They didn't kiss. Not yet. Not here. That would come later, I was sure. Eventually, they paddled out, her board wobbly under her, his confidence steady beside her. I watched from the bluff, camera trained like a sniper scope. Each moment I recorded wasn't evidence for court. It was evidence for myself. I needed to stop pretending. Stop hoping. By the time they were waist deep in water, she looked radiant. Like she'd left her old life on the shore. Like I'd become a shadow she didn't have to think about anymore. I left before she came back in. I couldn't watch the wet hair moment. The towel sharing. The inevitable lean into each other. It wasn't that I couldn't stomach it. I just didn't need to. I already had what I came for. On the way home, the roads felt foreign. I kept seeing flashes, her grin, his touch, the way their bodies synced like a habit. My grip on the steering wheel stayed steady, but my pulse betrayed me. I pulled over once, just outside of town. Parked at a gas station I didn't need. Sat there for 10 minutes and stared at the single photo on my screen. Haley in his arms. Eyes closed. Lips parted. Trusting. That was the part that killed me. Not the sex. Not even the lies. It was the ease. The way she trusted him again. Like there was no cost to breaking the foundation she and I built. Like I had simply expired. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the image until it no longer hurt. She walked in just after noon. Hair damp. Skin flushed. That post-surf glow she never used to wear. She tossed her keys in the bowl and wandered into the kitchen like nothing in the world was broken. Beach was perfect today, she said, digging into the fridge. The water was cold, but refreshing. I watched her from the hallway, letting the wall shield my face. Catch any waves? She laughed. Some. Still working on my pop-up. But Derek says. She paused, realized she'd said his name too easily. Her eyes darted toward mine, measuring. I smiled. Yeah. She blinked, the smile flickering. Just. Says I've got good balance. That's all. She closed the fridge slowly. I'm gonna shower. I nodded. You do that. She kissed me again. Forehead. Always the forehead now. Safe. Neutral. Devoid of passion. And I let her. Because I wanted her to keep believing I didn't know. Rope always tightens better when they hold it themselves. I stood alone in the kitchen, watching the condensation bead down the side of her water bottle. I didn't need to guess anymore. I didn't need to hope. And I damn sure didn't need to confront her without facts. She was giving me a story. I was preparing to end it. She came home different after that Saturday. Like she had something to prove. She walked in the door with a spring in her step, cheeks sun-flushed and eyes bright. But not the same brightness I saw through the lens on the bluff. This was curated light. Performed warmth. She brought home pastries from the little French cafe across town. The one she used to hate waiting in line for. Thought we could have a treat, she said, placing the bag on the counter with a flourish. Lemon tart's your favorite, right? I nodded slowly. Haven't had one in years. She laughed too loud. Exactly. Time to fix that. I watched her unpack the box with exaggerated care, like a mother preparing a child's birthday cake. She even warmed the plates, little details she never did before. It wasn't like her. That's the thing about guilt. It doesn't always manifest in silence or distance. Sometimes it performs. It overcompensates. It tries to rewrite the script by playing the part of the perfect partner. And Haley? She played it too well. She leaned across the island and kissed me. Lips soft, breath minty, eyes searching mine for any trace of suspicion. I gave her nothing but a smile. The first rule of warfare is letting your enemy believe the ground is safe. Over the next few days, she turned into someone new. She cooked 3 nights in a row. Cooked, not reheated. I came home Tuesday to balsamic glazed salmon, hand-tossed salad, and her in a black camisole I hadn't seen since the honeymoon phase of our marriage. She poured my wine before hers, asked about my day, sat with her legs touching mine under the table. God, I've missed this, she said, brushing my knee. This? I asked. She looked up, startled for a second, like she wasn't expecting to be challenged. Us. Just dinner. Talking. Being close. Yeah, I said, sipping my wine. Me too. She looked so relieved, I almost felt bad. Almost. That night, she came to bed wearing nothing. She slid under the covers and curled into me without a word, fingers exploring my chest like she was mapping old terrain. When her lips pressed against my neck, warm and unhurried, I let her. I wanted to know what she would offer. She pulled me close, straddled me with that familiar slow roll of hips. But it wasn't familiar, not really. Her rhythm was different. Her moans, forced, practiced. The sex felt like a memory acted out of obligation. Like she was making love to prove something. I let her ride me, let her scratch at my back, let her whisper my name with too much breath and too little conviction. When she came, it was quiet, her face buried in my chest, hiding. Afterward, she didn't rush to the bathroom. She curled into me, leg hooked over mine, like a woman trying to sew herself back into the seams of our life. I kissed her hair, stroked her thigh, and said nothing. The next morning, she was up before me, making breakfast. Haley, who hadn't cracked an egg in months, stood at the stove flipping omelets like she was auditioning for a cooking show. Coffee? She asked, too cheerful. I sat at the table and watched her move. Everything about her was effort. Too much of it. Her kisses lingered longer. Her eyes held mine more often. She was careful with her phone, but not secretive. She wanted me to see she was texting Sarah. Wanted me to ask. I didn't. She began using terms like us and we again. We should try that little cabin again this fall, she said Wednesday night while brushing her hair in the mirror. Remember that trip to Lake Arrowhead? That was perfect. Yeah, I said. It was. You and me. We were just so good then. She said it with this soft, hopeful melancholy, like we'd lost our way equally. Like she hadn't torn off the map while following another man's footprints into the ocean. Thursday, she called me at work. Just wanted to hear your voice, she said. I paused, listening to her breathe on the other end. Everything okay? I asked. She hesitated. Yeah, I don't know. Just love you. That's all. I waited a beat too long. Then, I love you too. Because part of me still did. And part of me was mourning him. The version of me who didn't know better yet. The one she didn't have to lie to. Friday night, she wore lingerie. The red set. Lace. Straps. Barely there. She hadn't worn it in over a year. We had sex again, slower this time. She was gentler, more present. And afterward, she cried. Not sobbing. Just silent tears against the curve of my shoulder. I didn't ask why. I just held her like she was mine. She thought she fooled me. But I wasn't playing the same game anymore. The next morning, she made waffles. She was singing to herself, humming some indie pop song that played in surf shops and coffee bars. She danced a little in the kitchen, hips swaying. When she saw me watching, she smiled, beaming, radiant, like nothing was wrong. She kissed me on the mouth. I love Saturdays, she whispered. I smiled back. Go catch your wave, I said. I'll be here when you get back. She kissed me again, deeper this time. I'm so lucky. She left with sunshine in her hair and sand already in her smile. I poured her coffee down the sink and washed the lipstick off my mouth. She thought she was dancing on stage, but I had already started pulling the curtain. The next Saturday, I didn't hesitate. No hesitation, no debate, no internal argument about trust or faith or the sanctity of vows. The time for giving benefit of the doubt had passed. Doubt was no longer a question. It was a diagnosis. Haley woke early, humming in the shower again. The same citrus perfume drifted from the bathroom, the one she never wore for me. She stepped into the bedroom wrapped in a towel, droplets sliding down her shoulders. She smiled at me like she wanted to paint a picture of innocence on top of a wall cracked with guilt. Wish me luck, she said, wringing her hair. I think today's the day I finally stand up on my board for real. You've been progressing fast, I said. A blink, a flicker of pride, then a kiss on my cheek, her mouth soft, but her pulse racing near her neck. She smelled nervous, excited, alive. See you later, she whispered. I nodded without looking up. Have fun. Her keys jingled, the door clicked shut, and I counted to 40 before standing. She thought she was building her escape story. She thought I was letting her. And maybe I was, but not the way she imagined. I drove the same route as last time, shadowing her from several cars back. Familiar turns, the same playlist she always used when she needed courage. Upbeat surf pop, ironic in its cheerfulness. She didn't notice me. Why would she? In her mind, she'd already won the lie. But she didn't head to the beach. She passed the exit, kept driving. My jaw tightened, but I stayed steady. It didn't shock me. It simply confirmed what my bones already knew. She pulled into the parking lot of the Coastal Crest Inn, a budget beach motel with faded turquoise railings and palm tree wallpaper in the lobby. The kind of place teenagers snuck into to lose virginity and married people used to pretend they weren't ruining their lives. I parked across the street behind a seafood shack advertising clam chowder and cheap beer. From my angle, I saw everything. Haley stepped out of the car, adjusting her bikini strap beneath her loose shirt. She didn't bring her board, didn't bring a wetsuit, just her body and a smile tucked like a secret at the corner of her lips. Then he pulled in. Derek's silver truck, same as always. He got out, wearing board shorts and sunglasses, hair still damp from a real morning surf. He didn't look around. Why would he? Secrets make you bold until they bury you. She walked to him fast, like gravity existed only between their bodies. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But the way their hands found each other's shoulders was worse. Familiar. Confident. He lifted her bag for her. Only one key at the front desk. One room. They disappeared into the stairwell. I didn't move. The wind rattled the seafood shack's banner overhead. A gull screamed somewhere above the roofline. A couple walked by holding hands, laughing like the world still made sense. And I sat there in the car, a quiet witness to my own unraveling. It wasn't anger that filled me. Not fire. Not fury. Something colder. Controlled. The kind of stillness that comes right before a storm breaks. Not the destructive kind, but the clean one. The one that clears the air after rot has settled too long. I waited 20 minutes. Not because I needed more proof, but because patience is the most powerful form of silence. Then I stepped out, walked across the street, and lifted my phone. One photo of her car parked beside his. One of them walking in. One of the room number on the railing. And then one last shot. Just the door, closed tight, like the truth behind it. Proof. Clean. Minimal. Surgical. I didn't bang on the door. Didn't demand answers or scream or collapse on the asphalt like a broken character in some melodrama. I simply turned and walked back to my car like a man who already made peace with the end. Driving home was almost peaceful. The breeze through the cracked window, the ocean stretching beside me like a promise of a life still untouched by her betrayal. I wasn't shaking, wasn't crying. I had no storm inside me, just clarity. I looked at my hands on the wheel. They were steady, strong, capable. The hands of a man preparing, not panicking. I didn't need to confront her there. Confrontation gives them power. Denial. Tears. Explanations rehearsed in bathrooms and whispered in hotel sheets. No, this story wouldn't end in a motel argument. It would end on my terms. Quiet. Precise. Irrefutable. I walked into the house like it was any other Saturday. Brewed coffee. Open windows. The surf wax she always kept in the drawer caught the sunlight. I held it. Smelled it. A life I thought we were building flashed like a mirage. Then I placed it back carefully. Because the truth was simple now. She had already chosen her world. I was simply preparing to remove myself from it. Not like a man abandoned. Like a man who refuses to drown in someone else's tide. It's strange how quietly a life can come apart. No screaming. No plates smashed. No dramatic exits. Just clicks. Soft ones. Bank accounts. Passwords. Locks. A slow, precise dismantling of the world she thought was still hers. Monday morning, I opened the joint savings account and withdrew exactly half, to the dollar. No more, no less. I left a note in the ledger column for the withdrawal, fair share. Let her read into that what she wanted. I wasn't stealing. I was claiming. After that, I met with a lawyer. I'm not here to argue, I said plainly. I'm here to prepare. He raised a brow, but didn't ask why. Just opened a folder and clicked his pen. We drew up the documents, discussed division of property, and how to keep things civil but final. He commended my clarity. That's what betrayal does. It distills you, sharpens you, burns off the excuses until only the core remains. The house was in my name, an inheritance from my parents before we married. Haley had always resented that detail, quietly. Now it mattered, because now it meant she'd have nowhere to stand when I pulled the ground out from under her. At home, I went through the desk drawers while she was at yoga. Or, rather, yoga. I didn't check anymore. It wasn't about catching her. I already had. Now it was about insulation. Removing her access, her tentacles, her narrative. I copied every important document. Titles, tax returns, insurance policies. I scanned them to an encrypted drive and locked the originals away. The safe we once joked about being too paranoid to use was now my best-kept secret. Next, passwords. Email, streaming accounts, phone plan, utilities. Anything I owned, I reclaimed. Quietly, carefully, without alert. When she came home that night, she dropped her keys into the bowl and greeted me with a kiss to the cheek. She smelled like hotel shampoo and someone else's cologne. She wore leggings, like she'd been sweating, but her eyeliner was still perfect. You order food already? She asked, hanging up her hoodie. Thai, I replied. Your favorite. Her smile was warm, grateful, like she believed this was healing. You're amazing, she whispered. I kissed her forehead. Let her think so. That week, I stopped initiating sex. She didn't notice at first. Then, on Wednesday, she climbed into bed naked again, pressing her body to mine. You okay? She murmured. You've been quiet lately. Tired, I said. She stroked my chest slowly. Missed you. I turned and kissed her, just once. I'm here. But I wasn't. She was sleeping against a ghost. Friday, I called our financial planner and removed her from all shared permissions. Then I opened a private checking account in another bank entirely. I transferred enough to cover the next 6 months of my life without interruption. This wasn't panic. This was chess. Haley started noticing small things. "Why is the Netflix logged out?" she asked Thursday night. "Must have glitched," I said. "I couldn't access our credit card rewards site." "Huh, I'll check it." She furrowed her brow for a moment. But only for a moment. She wanted to believe I wasn't changing, so she dismissed what was right in front of her. That's what cheaters do. They project their own deception onto others and assume everyone's lying, too. But when you stay quiet, really quiet, they'll fill the silence with the story they want to believe. She thought we were healing. I was building an exit. Saturday morning, she lingered in the doorway again. "I think we should take a trip soon," she said brightly. "Somewhere warm. Just us. No distractions." I smiled. "That sounds nice." She lit up, walked over, kissed me slowly, hands in my hair like we were back in year one. I kissed her back just enough. Not more. She tilted her head. "You sure you're okay?" "Yeah. Because you've been distant." I took her hand gently, kissed her knuckles. "I'm just thinking. About how much things have changed." She softened. "Misread it." "I know, but I think we're getting back to us." I nodded. She believed it. That night, she fell asleep on my chest again. Her breath warm against my skin, her leg tangled over mine like she was staking a claim. I stared at the ceiling, counting rotations of the ceiling fan, timing my breath with hers, imagining the moment it would all stop. Soon, I thought. Soon, the mask would fall off. But not yet. Not until she walked far enough into the lie to be buried by it. Sunday afternoon, she left her phone face up by mistake. A message from Derek buzzed in. "Can't stop thinking about you in that motel bed. You're in my blood now." She didn't notice I saw it. She was out back watering the basil she always forgot about, playing domestic like a wife who didn't have another man's sweat still lingering in her pores. I turned the screen off. I didn't need to read more, because I had everything I needed. Not rage, not revenge, just control. Control of the facts, control of the timing, and soon, control of the door she wouldn't walk through again. By now, her patterns were more predictable than sunrise. Saturday mornings meant beach bags packed with lingerie hidden beneath bikinis, meant body sprays meant to mask sex rather than attract it. It meant fake waves, fake lessons, and very real betrayal. I followed again, this time knowing it would be the last. I didn't wake early to second-guess myself. I didn't question whether I was being paranoid or cold or cruel. I woke knowing this was the last time I'd follow the woman I married. After today, I wouldn't have to wonder anymore. I stayed further behind her car than usual. I knew her turns, her timing. I could predict the yellow lights she'd run and the ones she'd brake too late for. I didn't need to be close. I just needed to be sure. She didn't go to the coastal Creston this time. She drove further, down the coastal road, past the busier surf spots, into a more secluded area where the waves came in harder, rougher. The kind of break only experienced surfers went to chase. Derek was already there. Truck parked, shirtless again, his skin bronzed like he'd been dipped in the sun. He leaned against the hood, arms crossed. That cocky grin like he already owned what wasn't his. She pulled up beside him, got out, and immediately stepped into his space. No hesitation. No nervous glances. Just a woman comfortable in a rhythm they clearly hadn't just started. They kissed. Not a peck. Not a greeting. A kiss that belonged in a bedroom. Deep, slow, hands roaming over ribs and hips. His palms slipped beneath the hem of her shirt. Her fingers traced the waistband of his shorts. That was it. That was all I needed. I lifted the phone and recorded just a few seconds. Their bodies close. Their mouths hung open like they'd just come up for air. Her arms locked behind his neck. She pulled away only to say something that made him laugh. One of those deep, satisfied laughs that only comes from a man who thinks he's winning. Then they walked down toward the shore. No boards. No gear. Just towels and a shared secret. I didn't follow them to the beach itself. Didn't need to watch her strip down for him. Didn't need to see what position they'd use this time on the sand. Didn't need to hear her moans swallowed by the waves. The truth was already recorded, and the last lie had just ended. I drove home with the phone on the seat beside me, the video still fresh on the screen. I didn't rewatch it. I didn't even think about it. I just drove. Every mile was a release. Every passing minute, a weight came off my chest. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was transition. The moment you stop fighting for something already lost. I pulled into the driveway and just sat there for a minute, staring at our house. Her herbs still wilted in the window. Her sandals by the door. Our dog's leash still hooked on the wall, and used since she said she was too busy lately. I walked inside like I owned the place, because I did. No more pretending. No more accommodating her fantasy. I opened my laptop, uploaded the video, and dragged it into an email. No subject line. No text. No commentary. Just the proof. I sent it to her private account, the one she didn't think I knew about, the one connected to her old college address. I'd seen it once, long ago, when she showed me her inbox by mistake and quickly minimized the tab. She thought I forgot. She always underestimated how much I remember when I'm quiet. I hit send, then turned off notifications and silenced my phone. That was it. No warning shot. No confrontation. No dramatic accusation. Just truth. Cold. Sharp. Undeniable. It took 30 minutes. The first call came in while I was in the garage, reorganizing the toolbox. Her face lit up the screen. I watched it buzz once, then go dark. Then again. Again. 5 calls. 8. 15. I didn't answer. She texted once. Please. Call me. I can explain. Explain what? How her tongue ended up in someone else's mouth every weekend. How her ex magically taught her to surf without a board. 23 calls in total. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I swept the garage floor. The grit and dust and old sawdust cleared beneath my broom in neat rows. Order and chaos. Control and aftermath. My phone stayed face down on the workbench. Silent. Still. Just like me. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. There wasn't room for rage. Not now. When you see the whole map, every turn, every lie, every moment they drifted from love into selfishness, there's only one thing left. Peace. Not joy. Not revenge. Just quiet. Because I knew something she didn't. She thought this was the worst part. The discovery, the exposure. But it wasn't. The worst part was still coming. And it would arrive when she got home. I didn't answer the first call. Or the second. By the 5th, I had already turned the ringer off. Let the vibration pulse against the workbench in the garage like a distant alarm for someone else's emergency. Haley was unraveling. I could feel it even from 100 feet and 2 walls away. And still, I didn't look at my phone. Instead, I continued sanding the edge of the old cedar shelf I'd been meaning to fix for months. A quiet, almost meditative rhythm. Long strokes. Controlled pressure. I let the grit wear down the roughness. Let the silence wear her down the same way. The proof had already been delivered. A short video. Simple, undeniable. Her mouth on Derek's. Her hands on his chest. Her eyes closed in devotion that didn't belong to me anymore. No text. No caption. Just evidence. The digital equivalent of a guillotine blade. The calls came faster after that. 10. 14. 20. My phone lit up with her face over and over again. The same selfie she'd set as her contact photo during some long-forgotten road trip, her hair blown sideways by wind, smiling like she belonged to no one but me. Now that face was a ghost, alive frozen in pixels. I didn't touch the screen, didn't even flip it over. Instead, I stepped outside, letting the early evening air wrap around me. The sun was still above the rooftops, casting golden light across the lawn I'd mowed last week while she was out surfing. Back when I still pretended I didn't know. The 23rd call came at 6:42 p.m. No voicemail. No text after that one earlier. The one that said, please, call me. I can explain. Explain. They always want to explain, as if context makes betrayal feel like less of a blade. As if cheating becomes tolerable when you understand the motives behind it. There's no explanation worth hearing. No sentence that erases the image of your wife pressing her lips to another man's throat like it was home. That was the moment I realized I didn't need closure. Because closure implies something mutual, an agreement, a shared pain, a civilized end. This wasn't that. This was burial. I spent the rest of the evening in the garage, drained the oil on the mower, sharpened the pruning shears, did things with my hands to keep the storm quiet. My phone buzzed once more, but I didn't check it. I already knew what I'd see. Her, begging in polite words, asking for a chance to clarify, to talk, to fix it. But some things don't get fixed. Some things get acknowledged, and then they get removed. Like tumors. It was 8:15 when I saw the headlights pull into the driveway. I didn't move. I stayed in the garage, wiping oil from my fingers as I listened to the sound of her car door opening. She hesitated at the front, keys jangling, maybe realizing what wasn't there anymore. Because I'd already removed her access to the garage, changed the lock on the inside door, reset the security panel code. She had no idea she was on the outside now. I imagined her trying the knob, the confusion blooming into panic. I imagined her checking her phone again, the read receipt mocking her silence with its emptiness. She didn't knock. Not yet. Maybe she knew better. Maybe she still hoped this wasn't real. I left the lights on in the house, not because I wanted to taunt her, but because I didn't want to hide. I wasn't sulking. I wasn't afraid. I was busy, and she no longer existed inside this structure. That's the part most cheaters don't understand. They think pain equals obsession. That betrayal ties you to them forever. But some betrayals don't bind, they sever. Permanently. At 9:12, she texted again. Are you okay? Please just say something. We can talk. I made a mistake. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. She was typing, deleting, retyping, erasing again. I pictured her on the porch, hair windblown, mascara starting to smear, phone in both hands like a shield. But I didn't respond. I was in the kitchen by then, pouring myself a drink. Bourbon neat. The good bottle I'd been saving for an anniversary we'd never have. I sipped slowly, savoring the silence. That was my response. By 9:45, she had stopped trying. No more texts. No more calls. Maybe she'd gone back to his place. Maybe she was curled up in the car, trying to think of a speech that might undo video proof. Maybe she was finally realizing that when you make your bed in someone else's motel room, you don't get to come home and sleep in mine. I left the phone charging in the bathroom. Didn't check it again. Didn't scroll through her timeline. Didn't dig for more lies. There was nothing left to learn. I knew who she was now. Not the worst version, not even a stranger. Just the truth of her. And I had no use for it anymore. That night, I slept on the couch, not because I was avoiding our bed, but because I wanted to stretch out under the ceiling fan, drink in hand, the breeze over my chest, knowing the entire house was finally mine again. I closed my eyes as the ice melted. The silence was warm, complete. I woke early the next morning, earlier than usual. The sky was still gray-blue, that color the world gets before the sun fully commits. I brewed coffee, black and strong, and stood barefoot in the kitchen while the house breathed silence around me. Today was the day. Today, the house would match the truth. I opened the closet in the hallway and pulled out the lock kits I'd picked up a few days earlier. One for the front door, one for the back, one for the garage, one for the side gate. One by one, I removed her access. With each turn of the screwdriver, something shifted inside me. Not satisfaction, not victory, just release. I didn't feel proud or cruel. I felt aligned. By the time the sun hit the living room, the job was done. Every point of entry she once used to call this place home was now a wall she couldn't pass through. Her keys were obsolete. Like her presence. I didn't touch her things until after lunch. Not out of hesitation. Just timing. I wanted the day to be quiet. I wanted the moment she came back to be unmistakable. So I worked slow. Deliberate. I took her clothes from the closet, folding everything with the care of a man not driven by rage. Tops, dresses, underwear, workout leggings she wore for other men. Folded, stacked, sealed in boxes. I labeled nothing. Just taped each one shut, crisp and clean. Shoes came next. Heels, flats, sandals, sneakers. I lined them side by side in one container, like preparing for a yard sale I'd never host. Her books. Her framed prints. Her hairdryer. Her collection of sea glass she'd once told me was sacred from childhood, though now I wondered how many stories she'd invented just to sound deeper than she was. Everything went into boxes. Not violently. Not rushed. Just done. I carried each one to the front lawn. 8 boxes total. A duffel bag with toiletries. A makeup case with her initials monogrammed. Her life, curated, reduced, exposed under an open sky. I stacked them neatly, precisely, like a retail display of someone else's bad decisions. Then I took the manila envelope from the drawer, slipped the signed divorce papers inside. No letter, no note, no quote from a poem she wouldn't have meant anyway. Just the truth. Stamped, dated, final. I taped it to the front door. Centered. Not hidden. Bold black ink. Do not contact. I showered. Shaved. Put on clean clothes. And I left. I didn't stay to watch her find it all. That's not how peace works. I didn't need the scene. The crying, the screaming, the last-ditch manipulations disguised as heartbreak. I didn't want to see her realize what she'd lost. I just wanted her to know it was permanent. I drove downtown. Got lunch. Took a walk near the bookstore. Bought myself a new copy of a novel I'd once loved but hadn't read since before I met her. Sat on a park bench and opened to the first page like I had all the time in the world. Because now, I did. The first text came in around 4:05 p.m. Where are you? I didn't answer. Then, why can't I get in? Then, what the hell is going on? A photo followed, of the boxes on the lawn. Another, the envelope. Then a voice message. I didn't listen. I saw her mouth moving in the preview, wild-eyed and cracked. I let her scream into the digital void. Because she wasn't talking to me anymore. She was talking to the part of herself that still thought I could be fooled. Neighbors pretended not to look. But I knew better. The Johnsons across the street always sat on their porch at this hour. They saw it. The boxes. The frantic figure pacing in the driveway with her phone pressed tight to her ear. I could picture it perfectly. Her crying. Checking the handle. Reading the divorce line 3 times, not understanding how it got to this. Her story collapsing around her. She texted again. This isn't fair. You can't just throw me out like garbage. But I hadn't. I had folded everything. Sealed it. Set it down in the sunlight. Garbage is tossed in the dark. I gave her full exposure. And now, she had to sit with it. No yelling. No arguments. Just decisions, delivered back to her in cardboard and silence. I returned home after sunset. The boxes were gone. So was she. All that remained was the manila envelope, ripped open and left on the lawn like an accusation. I picked it up, dusted off the corner, and brought it inside. Not to keep, just to file. Because this chapter was now closed. Every lock changed. Every room cleared. Every illusion ended. She came back the next morning. I heard her before I saw her. Frantic footsteps up the front walk, the rustle of plastic bags, the soft clatter of cardboard set down too fast. Then the knock started. Not soft ones. Not searching. Sharp. Desperate. Demanding. Open the door, she yelled. We need to talk. I didn't move from the dining table. Coffee in hand. Quiet Sunday morning. Sunlight falling across the hardwood like none of this touched me. In a way, it didn't anymore. Another knock. Fist this time. The sound of fear trying to disguise itself as anger. You can't just lock me out. This is our house. It wasn't. Not legally. Not morally. It never belonged to someone who treated it like a staging area between lies. I took a calm sip. Through the blinds, I saw her face, wide-eyed, destroyed. Hair unbrushed, clothes wrinkled, mascara smeared from last night's panic. She looked like someone who'd been spun out of her own gravity and didn't know where to land. She rattled the handle. Please, just please talk to me. I stayed still, like a stone at the bottom of the ocean. Silence has weight, and today it was crushing her. There's a specific kind of panic that comes when someone realizes love won't save them anymore. That moment when the hero in their fantasy refuses to play the role. She felt it now. A soft sob hit the door. Then another. Her voice cracked. You can't do this to us. There was no us left. Finally, she slid down the outside of the door. I heard it. The scrape of her jeans, the thud of her shoulder hitting the wood. She was sitting, knees to chest, breaking in real time. I didn't check the peephole. Didn't shift in my chair. I just let her drown in the silence she earned. Neighbors pretended not to look again. That suburban concern mixed with voyeurism. Curtains shifting, blinds parting. People love a spectacle as long as it's not theirs. Across the street, Mrs. Johnson paused on her porch, watering can in hand. Not judging, not pitying, just observing a truth she'd probably suspected long before I ever did. Eventually, Haley pounded again. I know I messed up, okay? I know. Just let me explain, please. There it was, that word again. Explain. Betrayal always wants a monologue. They rehearse it, polish it, twist it into something noble. I was lonely. We drifted. I didn't mean to. It just happened. But nothing just happens. She burned the bridge, then tried to sprint back across the ashes. I stayed silent. Around lunchtime, the tone changed. Anger returned. Fear disguised as fury. I have rights, you know. You can't lock me out. I quietly slid the lawyer's letter into my lap, and skimmed it again. I could. I had. Every legal mechanism was in place. I wasn't unhinged. I was prepared. Planning is a kindness you give your future self. My phone buzzed. 29 voicemails now. Dozens of texts. Each one a little more fractured than the last. You're overreacting. We can fix this. I didn't mean for it to go this far. You're being cruel. Please. I love you. I need you. Answer me. Needs. Not love. Love doesn't crawl back when the door locks. Truth does. Or in her case, panic did. I muted the phone again. An hour later, I finally approached the foyer. Not for her. For myself. To look at the door and see resolve where weakness used to live. Her voice was a hoarse whisper through the wood. Are you in there? I know you are. I rested my hand against the wall, not the door, feeling the cool surface. Solid. Unmoved. You're scaring me, she said. She hadn't been scared when she was undressing in motel rooms. Fear arrives only when consequences do. Her voice shook, barely audible now. I don't want to lose you. Too late. The only sound after that was the awkward, stifled sniff of someone trying not to collapse completely. Then footsteps. Then silence. She was gone again. Hours passed before I checked outside. The driveway was empty. The lawn clear. Just a single object remained. Her old hoodie, forgotten or dropped. Pale blue. Frayed drawstrings. It used to be mine before she stole it during a winter storm years ago, saying it smelled like me. Now it smelled like nothing. I left it where it lay. Some ghosts don't deserve closets. That night, the house was calm. The kind of quiet that fills every room, not with absence, but with peace. I made dinner, ate alone, cleaned the dish, sat on the couch without checking the time, without wondering where she was, without imagining who she was lying to now. My phone lit again hours later. A text. He won't talk to me either. Derek. Of course he wouldn't. Lovers in fantasy rarely survive in daylight. Shared betrayal doesn't build, it cannibalizes. Then, I don't know where to go. There was a time I would have sprinted toward those words. Protected, comforted, saved. But that version of me wasn't here anymore. I turned off the phone and set its screen down. Let her face the tide she created. Let the silence answer every question she ever asked too late. And in the quiet house, with the night settling soft and heavy around me, I exhaled. The first breath of a life not shared with someone drowning in their own deceit. She shattered the world we built. I simply refused to drown in the pieces. Tomorrow, she'd return again. Tomorrow, she'd beg again. And tomorrow, I'd still not open the door. Because silence isn't revenge. It's closure. 3 months later, I lived by the water. Not just near it, with it. Woke to it. Slept to it. Let it become the rhythm I followed when everything else fell away. The ocean didn't ask questions. It didn't apologize or betray or beg. It just moved, constantly forward, like it had nothing left to prove. I found a small rental north of the city. 1 bedroom. Wooden deck. The kind of place where you feel the wind in your bones at night and let the salt settle into your clothes without caring. The first few mornings, I just sat on the porch with coffee, letting the tide remind me how far I'd come from her. No more lies. No more silence weaponized by guilt. Just waves, steady and clean. I started surfing again. For real this time. Not chasing her story. Not investigating her affair. Just paddling out into cold, clear water at dawn, cutting through breakers until my breath matched the sea's pulse. It wasn't escape. It was restoration. The body remembers betrayal long after the heart stops aching. But in the water, none of that mattered. The ocean doesn't care who you used to be. It just gives you space to learn how to move again. I met someone eventually. Not in a bar. Not online. Just a coincidence. Her name was Elise. She worked at the small bookstore near the pier. The same one I wandered into one rainy afternoon just to kill time. She handed me a novel and smiled without agenda. We talked about nothing for half an hour. She didn't ask why my eyes were tired. She didn't try to save me. She just listened. The second time I saw her, she asked if I surfed. I told her yes now. She smiled. That's the best kind of answer. We didn't rush. We didn't label. No fireworks. Just steady warmth. The kind that doesn't need attention to breathe. One morning, as summer tipped toward fall, I took Elise down to the beach before sunrise. The wind was low. The waves gentle. We sat on the sand with blankets wrapped around our legs, sipping coffee while the sky opened in soft orange. She leaned into me, head against my shoulder, and I felt present. Fully, genuinely here. No ghosts. No echoes. That's when I saw her. Haley. She stood maybe 30 feet downshore, near the jetty, wrapped in an oversized hoodie, hands stuffed deep into the pocket like she was trying to hold herself together. Her eyes caught mine. She looked different. Smaller. Or maybe just quieter. Like life had drained the brightness she once used to distract the world from the truth. I saw the flicker in her expression, recognition, followed by the soft collapse of hope. She walked toward us. Slow. Hesitant. Elise sat up a little, sensing the shift in my body. You okay? She asked. I will be, I said. Haley stopped a few steps away. She didn't speak right away. Her mouth parted like she had a sentence lined up, something practiced, but she lost it the moment she saw my arm around Elise's waist. Her gaze dropped to the sand, then back to my eyes. You look good, she said. I nodded. I am. She stared at me, searching for something that wasn't there anymore. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she said, voice barely audible over the surf. For everything. For how I ended us. There it was. An apology, months too late, whispered into wind that no longer carried her voice into me. I didn't say anything. She stepped forward. You were a good man. I didn't know how to be what you needed. I never asked you to be anything, I said. Just honest. That landed. Hard. She blinked fast, eyes glossy. I made a mistake, she whispered. Mistake? No. What she did wasn't a misstep. It was a choice. Repeated, deliberate. But I didn't argue. I didn't need to. She looked at Elise then, just for a second, and something in her face twisted. Not jealousy. Not anger. Loss. She'd burned the bridge expecting me to rebuild it. Now she was just standing at the edge of water she no longer belonged to. I hope you're happy, she said. I am, I replied. She gave a nod, like a curtain falling, then turned and walked away, slow, heavy, like someone leaving the only stage they knew. I watched her go until she disappeared behind the curve of the jetty. Elise leaned into me again. Old friend? She asked, carefully. Something like that. You okay? I wrapped my arm around her shoulder and kissed the top of her head. I'm better than okay. Because I was. People think betrayal ends with rage or revenge or wreckage. But the truth is, it ends with silence. Not the kind you give someone to punish them. The kind that happens naturally when you realize they no longer occupy your story. She surfed nostalgia. I surfed morning tides. She held on to the past like driftwood in a storm. I learned to swim alone. And that made all the difference.